In this video, we're going to explore how you can create a nice burn down chart where we, for example, have here the item and it can show here as the actual task situation, but also the task changes. In this case, we have deducted with one task, and then here we have no changes in the task, but the moment we have a change, for example, we have reduced another task, and then here we have another item where we have to add up 2 new tasks because of a project. And with this, it will start to play. And you can see here the tooltip will show with the dashes and the task changes. But if you do here, where there's no changes on task, it will only show the actual task situation. So let's start to look how we can create this. So let's start to look how to create a burn down chart in Chartjs. So the first thing what we want to do here is we're going to get the border template, which you can find here on chartjs.com, getting started. This specific link you can find as well in the description box. Once you're on the site, scroll down here and copy this border template. So go to get all of this, copy this, and if you want to understand what this code all means, make sure you watch this video here that explains it all. So then we're going to paste it all in there, and then I will cut out the title and put the title in here. Save, refresh, there we are. Let's maximize the size of this. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say here 80%. Save, refresh. Alright, so now we have the first item, and what we want to do here basically create 2 data sets, but for a line chart. So I'm going to say here line, and then what I will do is I will just copy these data sets here, put a comma here, and there we are. So if I save that, refresh, now we have 2 lines, but of course they're identical. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this grayish color here. I will maintain that color. I'm going to put that in here. Alright, and remove the array bracket. Same here. Put in there. And remove the array bracket here. And then what I will say here, instead of a border width, I'll just comment this out, or I'll just put the border width on 0. Say comma, and then I'm going to say fill equals true. Save, refresh, and now as you can see, we get now a filler in here. So that's the first one, and this will be of course our what we call our ideal task situation, basically ideal task situation. All right, so then what I want to do is we're going to copy this, we're going to put it in here, and this would be the actual task situation, how many tasks we still need to do. Refresh this, we have that one. All right, next what I want to do here is the data. So let's say here, for example, we expect here to burn down as many tasks as possible. It's 7, 6, but then we have here suddenly, well, we go here to 5, then we suddenly have again 7, and then we go here, I'll just make up some numbers, 6, and then we do 5, and then we will be stagnant here because this would be basically the weekend. So I'm going to copy this, put it in here, and this would be the ideal, would be 6, 5, 4, let's say 3 and 3. So if I save that, refresh, there we are. So we get the ideal and the reality here. So as long as we are below this gray line, we're basically better than what we had projected. So basically here we have 6 tasks, and here down we have 5 actual tasks that we need to do, meaning we are ahead of our schedule. And here of course we are now again back off track, and we need to work again on the things. Anyway, so that's the core essence of it. What we're going to do now is the following. We want to make sure that we have some task in here, because you can see here we suddenly jump here a few items up. So that will mean that we will have to have these dots here with the value. So we're going to put then those in there as well. So let's work on that. So we're going to say here in the border width, I can just say here border width will be removed. So we get a nice thick border. If I save that, refresh, there we are, we get a thicker border. But then what I want to do here is I want to say here tasks. And basically what we're going to do here is the task that's being added. And then we can just say here, I'm going to put it by default 0, 0, and maybe here we say -1 for something like that, doesn't matter. 0, 0, and here we deduct 1 task, and then we suddenly change here, we have here 2 tasks, then we say here +2, or we can just put it 2, comma, and then here we'll just say again 0, 0, 0, and then we have the total amount of data points here. If I save this, of course nothing truly happens. We create our own independent object value here, or array. So this here now needs to be programmed. So let's start to work on that. So to do this, what we need to do, besides, before I even get ahead of myself, I need to make sure that this here, the Tuesday and all these, will be converted into dates, because that is usually built on dates. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to get here the time adapter. So go to chartjs.org. Once you're in here, click on ecosystem, and then on the ecosystem, scroll down here and then go on adapters. We're going to get the date FNS adapter. So use one of these two here. Moments has been deprecated since 2020, so avoid that one. I'm going to use this because this only requires one JavaScript to be added, so I'm going to use that one. So scroll down here, I'm going to grab this item here, which, if you read very carefully, it says here Chartjs adapter date FNS bundle. I'm going to copy this, put that in there, so then we are supporting the date structuring for the scales. So of course nothing happens yet. The reason why is we need to assign a date here. Let's do that one first. So say 2022, and let's say here July 1. I'm going to copy this, put it in there, in here, there, 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 and there. Finally, what I want to do is number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. I'm not looking at what would be the weekend. So basically the weekend we would skip then a certain activity. So we skip, but so we're not considering that one. So let's assume that this is just the weekends in this case. So what we're going to do now is we're going to scroll down here and we're going to convert, because right now it's just a string value of a date. It's not really a date object. So we're going to say here down, enter, I'm going to say here, scale for the X scale, and I'm going to say here, first of all I'm going to say your type, and the type will be equal to time. So we're going to use the time object now because we have it activated. And then what I want to do here is I want to say the unit, and the unit will be equal to the day. So if I save this, refresh, now we get here 1 July all the way up to 7 July. Beautiful. So this works nicely, and the only thing what I probably would like to do here is maybe to remove some of these grid lines here. We're going to remove the grid lines on the y-axis. So we're going to say here comma, and we're going to say here grid, and say here display equals false, and maybe here draw border equals false as well. Save this, refresh, there we are, we have it like this. That looks acceptable, I guess. So now we have this one here, and I realize that maybe these points can be removed as well. You can see here we have here right now we have a double item here. That's alright. What we want to do here is at least to remove the so-called points of this here. So let's start to do that one. We're going to go in this data set here, say comma, I'm going to say point radius 0 and hit point will be 0 as well if I'm not mistaken, or it's the hit radius, it's one or the other. So I refresh here, alright, and I guess here that's the hit radius. So say hit radius will be 0, and then maybe this is not the hit point, but it's the hit radius. So if I do that one, there you are. So now we only trigger one tooltip because we don't need the ideal task situation to be shown. Basically, the red line will define that one. So now we have this, and I guess what we could do here is maybe just make everything here red. That's a simple item. Save that, refresh. So we got all of that. Now, maybe here's some titles. Basically, here would be the timeline, and this would be basically the task that we have at hand, or how many tasks we have. So what we're going to do here, I'm going to say a title in the Y scale. There's a comma here, and I say display will be equal to true, comma, and then the text will be the task. So I'm going to say task. If I save that, refresh, there we are. Now down here, let's copy this, enter, put that in there, and then we can say here timeline or timeline / days, something like that. Doesn't matter so much. Alright, so we have these timelines here. Of course, this burn down chart is a scrum style chart. It's slightly more complicated than what we have here. However, the structure what we want is most important. So now we have this here, and what I want to do here is make sure is that if we have added a task or removed a task, like here, we want to make sure it's being shown here as a dot. So we have a dot here with how many tasks has been added. And that's just a nice extra feature that would explain the situation like these increases here a bit more. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a separate plugin for this. So we're going to say here in the scales, let's click on this curly braces here, and we get this connected curly braces. So we say here comma, and there's a plugins bracket, and then we can say here burn down chart. There we are. Or I guess it's basically a single word, or it's considered a single word, burn down chart. So I'm going to copy that. Then I'm going to say here enter, enter, / for comment, and it's burn down chart plugin block. Then what I want to say here, constant burn down chart equals curly braces, and I'm going to say here the ID will be equal to burn down chart, and then I'm going to say here when would we like to draw these items. Well, I want to have the dots, and the dots must be on top of the data set. So that would mean after the data set has been drawn, we will draw this afterwards. So we're going to say here after data sets draw, then we're going to get here the arguments, chart, arcs, and plugin options, so that we won't be using those. So then what I'm going to do here is an object destructuring. If you don't understand object destructuring, check in the description box understanding Chartjs object destructuring. So the constant curly braces equals chart, and then we're going to grab here, and what are we going to grab here? Well, basically a few items. We want to make sure we have the CTX because we want to draw on the canvas. We want the data because we'll be needing the data, the chart area because we'll be needing probably the position of the chart area lines, but although it might not be certain if we need them all. So it's a top, bottom, left, right, width, and height. Then what we have more is comma here. We say the scales, probably the X and Y scales could be very useful. So once we have this, now we have our object destruction up and running. We can say here ctx.save to save all variables above, and now we can start working on it. So what we want to do is basically this. I want to draw an item, and specifically a circle, which is called an arc in the canvas, and put it only on here in the center. So not here, but I want to put it here. So it's slightly tricky. So let's start to first put it something, and to do that, because we're going to make an arc, we're going to say constant angle equals math dot pi with capital P and I / 180. So then we're going to use it, and the reason why I'm doing this is because a circle has 360 degrees, but we're going to get the pi. A pi is consisted of 50% of a circle or half of a circle, and that is 180 degrees. Later on you will understand why. So then what I want to do here is we're going to say here ctx dot begin path, because we want to make sure that we have a shape that is independent from anything else. So then we're going to say here, give it a color, and I guess in this case I want to give it a white color, but if you have values or different color, you can put any color you want. I'm going to use white to match it with the background, but maybe it's not always a good idea, especially if the line goes close to 0, then it might not be visible. So you have to consider your colors here wisely. Anyway, what I'm going to do here is ctx fill style, and then this fill style will be equal, and we're going to say equal to white, or that we find white, or a hashtag, and then #F. It's one or the other. So then what I want to do here is I want to draw the circle. So I'm going to say here ctx.arc, because that's the command for the circle to create curved lines. It's basically arc. But if you want to have a full circle, we just need to have a 360 degree angle, and then it will make a full circle. So then what I want to do here is I want to get first of all the X position, the Y position, and then I want to have here the radius. And then after the radius, what I want to have here is basically angle start, angle end, and then finally counterclockwise, yes or no. Well, in that case, this will be just by default false. So the angle will start at 0, and then a full circle will be 360, and that will be basically the angle multiplied by 360. And basically 0 will be angle multiplied by 0, but that equals 0, so what's the use of putting a whole code in there then? So this is just easier. So the radius would define how many pixels from the center up. So basically, if you have a full circle, the radius would be, if you would slice it in the center, it will calculate it from the outer edge to the center. So in this case, because we're going to put in a text in here, I'm going to suspect that the radius should be not more than, I guess, 10 pixels or maybe 15 pixels, depending on. Let's do 15 pixels for now. So now we need to have the position X and Y, which would be basically depending on the item, if we have something, and then show it somewhere here, for example. So for the Y value, it would be then matching with the scale value 1. So we have it here. So what I'm going to do here, for the Y, I'll say here dot, and I say here, get value for pixel, or sorry, not get, well, I do exactly the opposite, get the pixel for value on the scale of number 1, which is basically this one here. So we'll get here whatever the height would be. So then here, I'm just going to put in 10 and just save it and refresh. And alright, so interesting, we don't see anything here. So let's see if I do 50. Don't see as well. Alright. So we have a fill style of white, and maybe that could be the issue. So I'm going to make it black to easily spot it. Alright, apparently I don't see it here. So let's start to look at what is going on. Now, do we have maybe any mistake? No mistakes. Alright. So let me check. So after looking, of course, so we don't have any mistake here. What I didn't do yet is, while we have the arc prepared, we didn't say to draw it. So that's my bad. We're going to say ctx.fill to draw the shape. Without this, of course, nothing has been drawn. It's just prepared to draw. There we are. So now we get this one. So if we do this back here on 10, where do we get it? We get it more there. Alright. So 15 pixels I think is quite acceptable. We could go lower if necessary on the circle. Do 10. Save. Refresh. Maybe I'll say 15 is quite doable. Let's put it on 15. But now what I want to do, I want to make sure it's here in the center. So how do we do this? Well, this one is slightly more tricky. So first of all, what we need to do is we need to get the command of getting the index of this index here, first of all, to match that, and then figuring out how we get in the center. So first, to get that index, we're going to use a built-in command in Chartjs. We say chart.get data set meta, and this will be index 0, and then we say a dot data, and then we're going to say here, for now, index 0 dot x. So basically what we're saying here is getting the value of data index 0 of data set index 0, but this one must be in parentheses because this is a built-in function. So then we have that one. You can see here this works. If we would convert this into 1, you will see it will move to the next item. While it moves correctly, we have one problem here. We want to push it to the center here. So how will we do that? Well, for that, what we need to do is calculate the width of this, and then we divide it by how many segments we have. In this case, we have here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 segments. So what we're going to do here is we're going to calculate this. So let's start to do that. And for that, I need to have again a separate item. And this, I'll just make this back into white. But then here, I'm going to say constant. And this constant will be, we're going to give it a name. Let's say the segment width. What we want to calculate is the width between this segment. So it's the segment width equals the width, which would basically be the chart area width, divided by how many data points we have here. So what we can do here is we get the data points in length minus 1. So what I'm going to say here, data, and I'm going to make it easy by saying data.labels. If you want the Y labels, let's go up here. You can see here we have the multiple labels here, data.labels, and we get here 7 labels. So then I want to say here minus 1. What I'm going to do here now, this and that, save, refresh. Alright, so we don't get any response yet, of course. And the reason why we don't get any response here is because we didn't calculate in there. So we have this minus 1, and I guess what we should do here, I guess we can just remove this. We do it like that. This should be prioritized, of course, my bad. And then, if we do this, we get the segment width. Then we only get the segment width. So if I would calculate this here, plus the segment width, alright, interesting. the width divide by, and then let me just double check here, console log, what's going on here. Alright, not a number. Alright, so why is it not a number? This is my bad. I'm talking about the labels.length, but I'm not doing the labels.length here. Save that, refresh. Now we have the length. Now it's, you can see here, if we move to index 1, it moves at the very end of that, basically on the next index. So we're close to it, but I need to just divide this by 2 to get to the center here. So what I'm going to say here, after this calculation and this division, we want to divide it again by 2, so we get not the width of the segment, but the half of it. So then, we are now in the center. Alright, so now we have this, and you can see here we probably need a for loop to move this all the time in the right position, or at least this one here. This should be like in a for loop, because then you can see here, this needs to be done. Alright, so let's start to work on that. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to remove this. You can see here, these constants should not be in a for loop or in the for each loop, and the reason why is that if not, it will loop through these values consistently, which is not necessary, and it will just make everything more heavier. So what I'm going to do here now, the for loop or the for each loop, but the for each loop will be based on the data.datasets, and I would say dot, I guess we can do even the dot task. That's probably the most logical one, because we can loop through this and then we can later on filter out how many items have a 0 and that needs to be ignored. So let's do this first. So I'm going to say here, the data, which we just basically get from here, dot data sets index 0. Then what I'm going to say a dot, we're going to say a task, and that should be with task with an S if I'm not mistaken. Then there you are. It's a plural. And then I'm going to say for each, and the for each will be for every task. What we're going to do is comma index, because we need the index value, and then of course we need to make sure that there is double parentheses here, a function arrow expression, because it's basically a callback functionality. And then what we're going to do is we're going to cut out this and put that in here. Once we did this, if we save this, refresh, alright, it doesn't work yet, or it doesn't loop yet. Well, basically it is looping, but this has to be soft-coded here. With the index, there we are. So you can see we have all of those. So now we have this, and what I want to do next is basically the following. I want to make sure that we're having the value as well being shown. So how will do that? Enter, enter, and I'm going to start working on the value itself. So the value for this is basically ctx.font. First of all, to define the font, and what I want to make sure that this is a bold font. Next, it will be 12 pixels. And that 12 pixels later on we can just see, we can coordinate if we can make the dots smaller, if it will not look, or if it looks too big or something like that. Next, we want to say the font family is sans serif. So once you have this, we have now prepared the item, but then what I want to do is I want to say your ctx.fill style, and I'm going to give it a color. In this case, I'm going to use the same color as these scales here, which is a grayish color, which is RGBA 102, 102, 102, and then 0. Let's make the solid one. That should be more than enough. So once we have this, next what I want to do is I want to start to draw the text. So I'm going to say ctx.fill text, and the fill text here, we should have here the text, whatever the text would be, comma the x and comma the y value. So for us, what do we not want is basically the value of the task, and this value should give us basically, this should be the value itself. So we're going to look into that. The next one is these two here. Basically the position of this should be very similar to what we have defined in the arc. So we have here this segment. So let's copy this, because that should be identical. Secondly, we have here the y pixel. This one gets value for pixel 1. That should be same, because y number 1, of course, because of this here. We want to stay on this same line. So we save this, refresh, there we are. Of course, right now you can see something is not correct. We have here the center. It's not really in the center, so we want to convert it into the center. Oh, sorry. Let's convert that into the center. So we're going to say here, enter, ctx.text align. Let's do that first. Equals center. save, refresh. Alright, that looks slightly better. But then next what I want to do is, just to be sure, is the baseline. So I enter ctx.text baseline equals middle. So we are basically like, if you're looking at the text height or the line height, it will be in the center of that specific on vertical level, center of that line height. So this is very important, because then we're going to remove this legend now. Let's remove the legend. We can do here in the option plugins. Then we say here legend display false, and the reason I'm doing this one here, because this sometimes will impact the positioning of it. If I do that, you can see here it stays in the center nicely. But I remember, if you don't do this one here, you might notice that it will be off slightly. There you are. So that's why I want to make sure that this is working and put it in the center. Alright, so now we have this part here. We have no more legend. That looks all beautiful. But look at these zeros here. We should not show zeros. That's redundant data, or basically giving information that has no real meaning for us. So let's start to clean up this specific item. So what we're going to do here is basically we're going to say enter. We're going to do here enter, and this is going to make here a quick if statement that will filter out if the condition is true. So we're going to say if the task will be not equal to 0. So the reason I do not equal to 0, we could have a deduction of tasks, or we could have an increase of tasks, but we don't want to have 0 tasks. That makes sense. Alright, so what we're going to do now is we're going to do that if statement. If this is not equal to 0, in that case we're going to loop through the data and show our circle shape item. Alright, we have this. Make sure that if statement is here, save, refresh. There we are. So if we would now add this up here, we can say here -1, save that, refresh. You can see here now it starts to display it nicely without any issues. The only thing, of course, what it will not display is the last one here. So that's very important. So we do here +5, save, refresh, it will not show. So that's the most important to understand. Alright, so now we are done here, but let's look at our tooltip here. I don't like this. We have the actual task, but what I don't like here, or what's missing here, is basically the values here that we should notify in the tooltip, especially here. If this is the tooltip for 1 July, this is basically between 1 July we are deducting a task, so in that case it should be indicated here. And then here this should be just clean, that's fine. So let's start to work on that. So I'm going to scroll down here, or let's remove this. Alright, then we're going here into the plugin to say comma. I'm going to say a tooltip. Put a comma here just in case, and then what we want to do here is look at the tooltip. First of all, I want to say y align equals, or column bottom. So the tooltip will point up. So you can see here the caret will point down, and there we are. So that's number one. That's first of all what I like. Next thing is we need to put in additional information. So say enter here, and then what I want to do here is create a callback, or specifically callbacks. This is plural, so you have to put in callbacks with an S. Then what I want to do here is we want to put in the label. And the label here, although this label I guess is fine, we don't have to do that one anything. What I want to do is I want to put in here the footer itself, or after the body. Let's make it dash. So we're going to say here after body. So after the body, we're going to say here context. In this context, you have the callback functionality. So then what we're going to say here, what I want to do here is return, and we're just going to make very simple. I'm going to make it just simple lines. So if I save that, refresh, now there we are. Alright, so that looks slightly better. Of course you can remove this, or you can change it up to your liking. Comma. The next thing what I want to do here is add up the footer. So we're going to say footer, and in the footer we're going to see again context, and then we're going to put in here a function arrow expression, and again a callback functionality, so like that. And then here what I want to do here is basically this. I'm going to say return, and I'm going to say here string value task or tasks added or task changes. Maybe that's even better. And then what I want to do here is basically extract the value that we have here. On the 0 here, where are we at? That's this one here. We're going to just extract this. So what we're going to do here, and I see here return must be spelled correctly, return. What we can do here is, I'll just leave that one for now, but I'm going to do a console log on the context to show you exactly how we're going to grab now the data from above. So we're going to save that, refresh, open up the developer tab. If I trigger and hover, you will see here we get some information. And what we get here is basically the index number, and then what we also get here is the data set. You can see here this is data set, data index number 2, which is correct, but then what I want to grab here is the task or the tasks here. So let's look, and if I hover over, you can see index 0 data set dot task. So we say here index 0 dot data set dot task with task with an S. So let's see what happens if I just do this, save, refresh, and then if we hover over it, alright, we get here now the item, and what I want to have now is the index number. So let me just comment this out for now, do another console log, and figure out what is the index number, or how do we get the index number. So if I save this again, refresh, if I hover over this one again, this should be index number 2. And how do you get that? Click on this. You see here data index number 2. So it shows it already. So we say here 0 data index. So we say here index 0 dot data index. If I save that now, refresh, number 2. This should be number 3. Alright, as you can see here, it recognizes these movements. So what I can do now is just cut out this, and I guess we can make here a template literal. So I'm going to remove this and do backticks. If you want to know where backticks on your keyboard, below the escape button. And then say here, $, curly braces, I'm going to do this index, and then the index number will be this specific item. Put that in there, save that, refresh. There we are. So now you can see here it shows the item nicely. And what we could do is, if we don't want to have, if the changes are 0, we can probably hide this. So what we're going to do here, maybe an if statement, very simple. I'm going to say here, if this value, this index, would be equal to or not equal to 0, then we want to show it. Then we want to return a value here. If I save that, refresh, let's see. As you can see here, same, 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 and then maybe let's see if I do here. There we are, that shows it. This one here shows -1, number 2, and here -1 as well. And what we could do as well, maybe say, well, if you have that, maybe the dashes should be removed as well. You're absolutely right for that one. Let's do a console log as well and see how we can extract the same item. Most likely it's the same structure, but just to be sure, I'm going to refresh, console log. Alright, this is 121, that is correct. Click here, and you can see here exactly, if I'm not mistaken, it's the same structure here. The data set, and you can find it all. Alright, so that's all same. So what I'm going to do is just going to copy this, put that in here, and then we're going to say here, I'm going to cut out this, place that in there. Save this, refresh, let's look, there we are. Now it shows only the segment of the tooltip if there would be a task assigned to it. Let's double check that by putting another value in here. Let's say number 2 here, another one. There we are. There you are. And this one here probably will show here number 5, but that is from the other tooltip item. But anyway, that is or basically outside of the scope of this chart here. So this is basically the way to do it and how to create a nice burn down chart here showing these values here or task differences. So if you enjoyed this video, I'm going to recommend you another video as well, because this is really fun. But of course you could maybe filter out dates where you can track this even more. In that case you want to create a certain filter. In that case I'm going to recommend you this video, how to filter dates in Chartjs here where you have like a starting date and ending date, and it will filter out only that specific period.